Welcome back, guys, to Can We Talk with Juel podcast, proudly sponsored by fundraisingcup.org Ministries. We are presently exploring a new series entitled Navigating Toxic Work Environments. I'm going to take a little sip on that note, where we're going to explore the challenging realities of toxic workplaces and provide insight on how to navigate them successfully. I'm Jewel, your host, and in this series, we'll dive deep into the signs of toxicity, the impact it has on employees, and the strategies that you can use to foster a healthier work environment. In today's first episode, we will discuss what makes a workplace toxic, first and foremost, and why is it crucial to address these issues head on. Whether you're currently experiencing a difficult work situation or simply want to be prepared for the unexpected, this series is here to guide you along the journey. So what we're going to do, we're going to uncover some practical tips and in recognizing these behaviors, ways to advocate for yourself, which is really important, and others as well. And ultimately, how to create a more supportive and positive workplace culture. I hope you all join me as we uncover the truth about toxic work environments and empower you guys to take the necessary steps for change. So let's get started, guys. I'm really excited because this is something that I wanted to delve into for some time. A few years back, I want to say about 5 or 6 years ago, I started a company called Diverse Ethics Solutions. And you guys can access it on my LinkedIn page. I think I still have some older videos up to try to help young people understand the dynamics and navigating um, toxic workplace environments. Because the truth is, let's be honest, guys, there is no toxic workplace 101 that we get taught in college. We're thrown in there, right? Like sheeps. And before you know it, like we're part of this toxic culture. We're like, how did we land here? What is this? Why is everyone so just what are the words I'm looking for? They're just not decent. You know what I mean? It's like survival of the fittest. I think it's survivor at work. It's crazy. But anyway, I created that, and I know it's helped a few people. At least it started conversations that needed to be held, which I'm proud of, right? Because people reached out to me on LinkedIn. And they're like, "Oh, the video you had, it made me laugh, but it's so true. I experienced that." And that was my first shot at tackling this topic, which many people are afraid to touch on because the whole blacklisting thing, in corporate America, and them not really wanting to address the hidden hand and things that goes on behind the scenes, um, and leave a lot of youth ill prepared and just slaughtered, so to speak, without any guidance or assistance. And so we have a long list of superstar guest, which shocked me, that's ready, willing to talk about this topic. Hopefully, I don't have any more internet issues because when I get on hot topics, I'm telling you, my internet coincidentally goes out. But hopefully that won't be the case, and we can really jump in here and, just get right to it. Frankly, I want to start with a list of examples of toxic environments. And I don't know whether I should laugh or even cry because I experienced just about all of them. But we're gonna go for it because I really want you guys to get informed, be prepared, and understand what's really happening in the corporate setting and cultures, right? So the first, it's a basic one. It's gossiping, right? Everyone can relate to the gossiping and rumor valley, right? Where employees frequently engage in gossip, spreading rumors about each other, and create mistrust and anxiety amongst the team. Now, I've worked in corporate America for several decades, and those of you that just immediately want to jump and check my age out, just know that I may not look like what I've experienced, but I've walked through the valley, guys, and I have experienced colleagues really gossip about some awful things about one another. And truly, I always try my very best not to engage in gossip. And sometimes that makes you the victim of gossip because, they're like, well, she thinks she's too good to listen to the latest news source we got rolling in. But, some of it is just so over the top. I mean, there's this belief, and maybe I don't know, but for me it didn't happen, so I seldom believe this gossip, right? So a lot of people like to believe, especially when it comes to women getting promoted, that um they're intimate with a supervisor. I don't know, right? But I truly try not to engage because I work really hard for my positions and everything I've gotten. I always tell you guys, I got it out the mud, right? And when people start to spread rumors, it's really just sickening because some people don't understand the hard work that goes behind it, especially if you are an attractive woman. And I've seen a lot of attractive women in corporate America, and that gossip and stigma always finds its way around them, and welcome back. We had some technical difficulties, but I think we have corrected it, and we can commence, right? So we tackled the gossip train, right? And I used to joke around with one of my colleagues. We used to call a lot of the because it's like a circus, right? When you have all these gossipers and laughing hyenas and um what do you call them, giraffes looking over people's cubicles to see what they could find out. It's like one big old circus with flying monkeys. I mean, you name it. And oh, forget it. Don't mention the clowns, right? So there's that, the gossiping. And once you can get past that amongst your colleagues, then you have to deal with number two, lack of communication. And this was one of my pet peeves, right? Because poor communication from management leads to confusion, misunderstandings, and feelings of alienation among employees. And those of you who have experienced this, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you know, you have a manager that tells you, well, they wanted you to do something, and I don't know if they thought you could read minds, but they didn't formally explain what it is that they wanted done, and you kind of put your own creativity on the assignment, because you weren't given specific examples like don't do this, do that. So you did your spin, and the lack of communication creates this meeting, if you will, and we all know that there's a meeting for everything. And so it's best to have clear, concise communication with management, especially if that manager is a macro manager, like they see the big picture and they don't find issues until the product is delivered, right? Then it's, oh, I didn't mean for you to do this. I didn't mean for you to do that. Well, you need to be clear on what the boundaries are from the onset so that we don't have this kind of miscommunication. Third, and this is another one of my favorites. The good old micromanagers, right? We've all experienced them. Leaders who excessively control how employees perform their tasks can stifle creativity and diminish morale, causing stress and frustration. I've had my fair share of micromanagers. I know I felt at one point, maybe you should just do it because, if everything is an issue in how I do it, then you're not giving me breathing room to actually do the assignment. So, they're definitely one of the people that are very challenging to work with, micromanagers. And I've had some that came to my desk to ask me, "Did you send the email that I've sent the email for you to send?" I mean, it was just like, really, are you kidding me? Um, it's unbelievable, but definitely micromanagers can create a toxic work environment. Um, Fourth, an unreasonable workload. I've experienced this as well. So you've ever worked with an organization where they intentionally bombard you with a workload that they know cannot be done within the time frame allotted. And a lot of times, especially with contractors, they know this, right? And they're trying to get as much work as possibly done. And I've worked in roles where I worked as a quality assurance specialist, and I've always questioned, well, what do you want here? Do you want quality or do you want quantity? Because the workload, the cases that you're giving me cannot be done within the time frame that you're allotting if you want quality. So you're going to have to, spell out what is it that you're seeking here. And they'll kind of like talk in circles, never really address that, and expect you to put a bandage on a hemorrhaging problem. Um, it's just foolishness. And again, I've worked with a lot of contractors that experience this, and it's really frustrating to work in that kind of environment where they want to push out as much work like a factory worker as possible, and then come back and complain that the quality isn't where they would like it to be. Well, genius. It can't be because you're giving me 14 hours of work and you only want to pay me 9 hours to get it done. So, been there, done that. And it just becomes very toxic. You're exhausted. You're ultimately not going to meet the goals. They know you're not going to meet it. And it's just a setup for failure. So that's just hands down, when you start to see the environment becomes that way, start looking into an exit strategy because there are no wins out of that. Next, there is the all outright discrimination and harassment. Oh yeah, this is one of my old time favorites, right? So this is an environment where the workload, excuse me, not the workload, but the behavior or harassment, if you will, is based on gender, race, or other characteristics, and is tolerated or ignored, all right, by either management or the organization at large. And it could be profoundly damaging, profoundly. Um, I can give ample examples of experiencing this. And I know one of the most challenging things in corporate America, especially for people of color, is to ever actually build a case of racial discrimination, because that's one of the hardest cases to build, right? Even though you may know it, your colleagues may know it, unless that manager outright says something outlandishly racist, which they probably won't, but they can treat you disparingly worse than your colleagues based on your race, but it's so difficult to prove. And a lot of attorneys don't even want to touch on the case because, like I said, you get to court and they'll just say, oh, he just didn't like the shoes you wore, or he just didn't like, it could be anything. The coffee mug you had, it had nothing to do with your race. That's all a figment of your imagination. Um, so that's something that I would warn young people to pay attention to, and also know, because it's so difficult. um it's one of those things where you ultimately have to decide for yourself, is this an argument that I really want to push and stay here for, or start looking for an exit strategy. um I can give you an example that I've experienced, which is maternity discrimination. And that's not as difficult to prove, because some people are so blatantly discriminatory against women that have children. It just blows my mind. I've had cases where um, I came back after maternity leave, and I was pretty much being demoted on the spot for taking maternity leave. I'm talking about within 3 months. All of my managerial privileges were being pulled from me one by one, you know, simply because of the retaliation of wanting to have a child. I've also experienced it where I've had the child, or I was pregnant with the child, and I think I was around, like, I want to say 8 months pregnant, and I was about to leave, and I was on a contract, and I was just let go. Uh, I was let go, not because of my work declining in any way, but they were doing construction on the floor that I was working on. And the paint inhalation that I was experiencing was not just affecting me, but my unborn child. Excuse me, sorry for that. My unborn child. And so, I brought it to my employer, not in a way like, I have a case or anything like that, but it was more so like, can you be compassionate towards me? I only have um, 2 weeks left. Is it possible that I can work from home and just finish out my responsibilities so that I can still have medical coverage to have my child? Well, um, needless to say, the answer was not only no, but you're fired for even suggesting such a thing. And I know for some people, they're like clutching their pearls, like, what? Where does this happen? Yeah, here in America. Um, for certain, people, they're very insensitive, especially to women having children in corporate America. For some reason, there's this belief that you have to either choose one or the other, either rise in your career or have a family. And I don't know why it's that way, for especially for our community, but it is. And those that fight back, we literally have a war in our hands that you wouldn't believe, because um, the retaliation and fighting back is sometimes so unbearable, not just financially, but mentally. Taking on organizations, and HR. That's a whole nother that's a whole another topic for a different day. But HR is not necessarily there to support or help you. They're there to protect the organization. So in going to human resources and thinking, aha, you guys are clearly going to support me here because this is maternal discrimination. You are absolutely incorrect. They will not help you. They will help the company try to cover up what that manager did incorrectly. And so I just want to prepare you ahead of time, young people, before you even go down that route and think you're going to get assistance there. But yeah, discrimination, harassment, and I probably should channel in retaliation in that group, because it really comes right after the other. can all create such a toxic environment and a survivor mentality amongst those involved. And then there's favoritism. Those of you that know, just know. Um, I have experienced favoritism on both sides. Um, and it's, when you're on the winning side, of course, it's not a problem. You just take it and run with it and do what you got to do to get through, corporate America and open doors for those behind you. But when you're on the opposite end of favoritism, you're literally watching people get away with time and leave issues, um, promotions not based on work ethic and productivity, but just off of favoritism. And it can be very frustrating and defeating, just witnessing it. Many people talk about the good old boys club and, how easy it is for them to come in and kind of navigate through corporate America ahead of you, especially if you're putting in the hard work, the travel, the dedication. It's very frustrating, and I've seen it both ways. And then there's, oh boy, the fear-based leadership. Don't you just love that? Where leaders use fear tactics to motivate employees. And that creates a climate of anxiety at its best, where employees are just simply afraid to speak up and or take risk. I remember in one of my um, early roles, like just coming in to corporate America, I was working with um, a few senior people, some women and men that's in their 40s, seasoned, and they were literally like afraid. And they were warning me about just about everything, like don't bring anyone in because they'll use that person against you. Don't do this, don't do that. Don't, I mean, it was just like being coached to be at war, a war zone. And I was like, how did you work here for so long under this terrorism? I mean, it's insane. Um, but yeah, there are managers that use constant fear tactics to get what it is that they want, and they will um go as far as violating your rights, your privacy even. Yeah, it's that deep. um to get whatever they want and whatever they need done, and to influence the others not to cross them. So just a pre-warning: when you walk into a culture like that, and sometimes I wish I had someone like myself back then to give me the head nod of, Listen, this is not going to bring in any positive growth for you. Start the exit strategy." And then there's lack of recognition. That's another toxic environment, right? Where employees work hard to achieve for achievements and they go unrecognized, right? Um, and this can lead employees to feel worthless, and just disengage completely. Like, what's the point in even um, commenting when someone's going to steal credit for my work, one, and then I'm not going to get any recognition either way, and I'm going to watch other people get promoted despite putting in that hard work ethic. That's really discouraging, and I've been there too. Um, again, it's one of those things where, you know, just always kind of have that exit strategy. And, you could always feel like, okay, I'm going to go someplace, and you hope for the best. And once in a while you do get a really good manager. I want to give them credit as well, because there are a few out there. They're few and slim in between, but they're out there. And even when I began managing teams, many of them still keep in contact with me because I make it an effort to not become like the worst. And that's the thing. Oftentimes, many of the people that are promoted, they kind of project onto the next group everything that they suffered from it, as opposed to learning from it and saying, I will never do that to anyone. I will never put that kind of pressure on a mom. I will never make someone feel isolated or not give them credit. Instead, that it's just a repeating cycle, an unhealed cycle. And so it's tough, but you just got to keep going till you find your niche and your your pride, your group of individuals that have the same type of ethics that you do. And it's tough, but you got to keep pushing. The next thing is a poor work life balance. I don't know how many times I hear this phrase in corporate America, and I don't know how many times people, especially in human resources, think that it's being managed well. It's an environment that expects employees to ultimately prioritize work over their personal life. And this could lead to stress. I mean, family issues and health problems. I mean, it really behooves me that, a parent can have an emergency with a child, right? Or even not even so much an emergency. Maybe you just want to attend a recital of your child because you only get that moment once. And you have these employers that could care less. Not even just the employers, but some really toxic managers, especially the ones that are childless. Oftentimes, when we look for jobs, I always pay attention to um, the managers' uh, work life balance, so to speak. Like I do ask questions every once in a while, if I see pictures of a family or lack thereof on their desk, to try to gauge an understanding of what my life will be like with this person. Because oftentimes those that do have families get it, and those that don't and focus their whole life on a title, um, often bring a lot of suffering with them. And so I would definitely recommend that. I know you cannot ask outright questions, but if you do see a photo or something and you happen to be in the room, just kind of feed off of it and see where it leads, because you don't want to be in a situation with someone that doesn't believe you should care about your family as much or more than your role wherever you're at. Because I always say it's God first, family second, country, and then employment, because that rotates. So balance it how you may, but that's my suggestion to all of you. And then there's no opportunities for growth. Oh, that's one of my favorites, right? You could work in an organization for years, and just be stagnant in the same role, because they will tell you there's just no opportunities for promotion for you, without any real rationale. I mean, you could have really busted your butt that year and you're like, what? Like, I brought in a whole database, traveled and this and that. What do you mean? Oh, well, it's just not happening. But Billy's getting promoted and Sarah's getting promoted. Why isn't Jewel getting promoted? And again, the signs are on the door that you are not being valued, or whatever acquisitions that are going on in the company is just not going to be in your favor. And you have to decide at that point, um, will this role work for you? Does it give you enough work life balance to accept the fact that there is no growth here, right? That at the end of the day, because that was a decision that I too had to make at one point. And I'm like, even though they are not offering an opportunity for growth, they, unlike many other organizations, understand the demands of motherhood and give me more freedom. than other jobs. So I am willing to stay here a few more years, um, while my children are very young, as a means to get to where I need to get to. So those are things you want to consider as well. And then there's the high employee turnover rate. I don't know any bigger red flag than that, right? You come into an organization and you're like, what? The whole department left? What happened? Like, really? You guys asked me what can I bring to the table? What did you take with the table that led everyone to leave? Um, frequent turnovers are clear indications that it's a toxic environment. I don't know what else to say. As employees are unhappy and leave in search for better opportunities, it couldn't be any more clear that the environment in and of itself, the culture is toxic, and these people couldn't withstand it. So that's something to definitely pay attention to when you see a mass hiring, and you're like, why are we hiring so many people, right? Um, and then there's poor conflict resolution, right? I mentioned to you guys earlier about how things can escalate quickly. It can go to HR. It's still not resolved adequately. These issues and conflicts are left unresolved, creating an ongoing atmosphere of tension and frustration. And there's nothing worse than that, right? If human resources just puts a bandage on something they see as a huge deal. You see that there's discrimination, you see that there's ongoing harassment, you see that there's ongoing retaliation, and you're doing nothing. Absolutely nothing. That is a toxic environment. And again, prepare your exit strategy, because nothing is going to improve unless the whole department is wiped out. The policies and procedures are changed. And so you're not going to be a one-man show to bring any change here. It's pretty much, it's done. And so, these are just some of the signs I would say to look for in a toxic work environment. And experiencing many of them, I am excited to do this series. We have, again, an all-star lineup with authors of books that talk about toxic work environments and how to navigate through it. And I'm hoping that it not only bring some healing to those that are experiencing maybe age discrimination or whatever is at play, whether you know you're being constructively discharged, because a lot of companies do that. I didn't mention it in my list, but that's pretty much where you're set up to be let go. And um and you just kind of have to deal with the repercussions of that. um all I can say is, when dealing with a constructive discharge, the best thing you can do is to take notes of the situation thoroughly, dates, times, recordings, because it's just so many setups and so many people are willing to get involved to do unethical things